On May 31st, Grant launched a frontal assault at Old Cold Harbor. His goal was to weaken the Confederates before they could reinforce themselves. The Confederates were able to execute a successful counterattack. Grant postponed the next attack until June 3rd to strengthen his defenses. On June 3rd, 50,000 Union troops attacked 30,000 entrenched Confederate soldiers. The Confederates killed or wounded more than 5,000 Union troops in the first hour, making it a regretful attack for Grant. On June 5th, Grant asked Lee for a stoppage in the battle. Grant's injured soldiers from the previous attack needed to be retrieved. The two spent 2 days negotiating before Grant's wounded troops could be retrieved. From June 4th to June 12th, both armies reinforced their lines and engaged in minor attacks. On June 12th, Grant's army withdrew and moved south. After Cold Harbor, Grant's initial attempt to capture Richmond failed, and Lee's soldiers managed to defeat the Union during major attacks. After the Battle of Cold Harbor, Grant took up a new plan to capture Petersburg, an important railroad link south of Richmond. Now called Butcher Grant, was criticized for unnecessary losses to thousands of Union troops. The Battle of the Wilderness took place 11 months before the end of the war in Wilderness, Virginia, from May 5th to May 7th, 1864. This was the first battle of General Grant's 1864 Virginia Overland Campaign against General Lee. Both sides suffered heavy casualties. Grant lost approximately 17,000 of his men, and it is estimated that 11,000 Confederate casualties occurred. Grant planned to clear the Wilderness before trying to destroy the smaller Confederate Army of Northern Virginia of 60,000 men under Lee. Lee advanced on the Union troops while they were still in that area, causing Grant to force an attack. After the repulse of a Union attack on May 6th, through an opportune arrival of the 1st Corps under James Longstreet, Lee counterattacked and the battle became stabilized. On May 7th, Grant disengaged and moved his troops to between Lee and Richmond, which led to the bloody Battle of Spotsylvania Courthouse. The siege of Petersburg consisted of multiple battles in which the North attempted to penetrate the southern trenches surrounding Petersburg. The siege lasted from June 9, 1864 to March 25, 1865. Key officers included Robert E. Lee, Beauregard, Longstreet, Ewell, Hill, and Anderson from the South, and key Union commanders included General Grant, General Meade, and General Butler. General Grant wanted to capture Petersburg in order to cut off supply lines to Richmond. By capturing Petersburg, Grant was able to focus his troops towards Richmond and Appomattox. Advancing toward Appomattox led to Grant's surrender. The Battle of Spotsylvania Courthouse, also called Combat at Laurel Hill, took place from May 8th through the 21st in the year 1864 and was fought at Spotsylvania Courthouse, Virginia. The Union troops were led by Lieutenant General Grant and Major General Meade, while the Confederates were led by General Lee. The left flank was stalled at Spotsylvania Courthouse, and the Confederate Army was nearly halved by May 12th. Grant continued his overland campaign and advanced to Richmond. The Confederates lost 12,000 men, and the Union lost 18,000 men, for a total of 30,000 casualties. The Battle for Atlanta took place on July 22, 1864, and lasted more than 8 hours. This was a very bloody battle, with over 12,000 total casualties. The Union lost 3,641 men, while the Confederates lost 8,499. The Union was led by General William T. Sherman, while the Confederates were led by General John Bell Hood. McPherson withdrew troops from the main line and headed toward the unprotected left side of the Confederate Army. Time was miscalculated and caused for an unexpected battle when troops met. The Union was able to hold their position and win the battle, during which McPherson was shot and killed. Sherman's march to the sea occurred from the fall of 1864 to the spring of 1865. Sherman's march to the sea is viewed as being the most destructive campaign in the American Civil War. The Union General William T. Sherman marched from Atlanta, Georgia to Savannah, Georgia on the coast. After that, he marched his men north through South Carolina. He waged a total war strategy by destroying farms, railroads, and industry. Sherman's main goal was to prove to Southern civilians that their government could not protect them. After Sherman captured Atlanta, he made plans to move to the coast. Lincoln did not want Sherman to go deep in enemy territory until after the November presidential election. Grant eventually convinced Lincoln to let Sherman march, but it had to be after Election Day. Sherman carefully planned a route to Savannah that was most populated. Confederate General Hood tried to draw Sherman into Tennessee, but Sherman anticipated this and only sent some of his forces to deal with Hood. Thus, Georgia was left at the mercy of the Union. Sherman divided his 60,000 men into two wings. Sherman issued strict orders about conduct on the march, but most men ignored them, especially the ones concerning looting. The two wings marched separately, with the right wing moving towards Macon and the left towards Augusta. They eventually met at the state capital of Milledgeville, overran the 8,000 Confederate cavalrymen there, and captured the city. They raided farms and plantations along the way, becoming known as bummers. There were only two major battles in the Georgia campaign, Griswoldville and Fort McAllister. Both battles had disastrous effects for the Confederacy. Sherman was criticized by the Northern press for the somewhat brutal way his men treated the Georgia countryside. The Confederates abandoned Savannah to the Union after the fall of Fort McAllister. On December 22, 1864, Sherman offered Savannah to President Lincoln as a Christmas present. In 1865, Sherman advanced north through South Carolina, wreaking similar havoc. He hoped to join Grant's forces that were confronting Lee in Virginia, basically demoralizing the Southern population by frightening them and destroying their civilian property was the goal of the campaign. Sherman proved that the fleeting Confederacy could not protect its citizenry from the ravages of the war. Since Sherman's men destroyed buildings, farms, and railroads, the economy of Georgia was crushed. This campaign has come to be viewed as symbolic of the North destroying the South's way of life. My dear Sarah, I did not finish my letter before we were started off to join General Anderson, who had gone to Barrysville, and there met and defeated the advance of the Yankees toward Winchester, whipping a corps with a division. We went down to aid him, and found the Yanks had entrenched themselves strongly, so we did not attack them, but the defeat Anderson gave them caused their cavalry to come back from a raid they had started way up the valley, so our object was accomplished. Yesterday we came back to Stevenson's, where we now are, in time to join our cavalry in a fight they were having with Averill, and we drove him back several miles until dark to stop the pursuit. One of Alfred Wilson's sons was wounded in the fight. Not severely, though. We had several of the cavalry killed and wounded. They behaved well. It rained very hard last night, and today it is very moist. We are being smoked by campfires and lounging round to pass the day. I think the rain will do much good, making the ground fit for plowing. I suppose McClellan will be elected, as nearly all the Army of the Potomac goes for him. Pendleton, the nominee for vice president, is a man with strong Southern feelings, and a peace man, it is said. Evidently the peace and war men have made a compromise matter of the nominations, and will all be for peace if the signs of the times are as much in our favor as they are now. We are very well assured of the fall of Atlanta, since the Yanks have official dispatches announcing it, but we are full of hope that even good may come from temporary ill, and that Hood has not given up the place, but for good and sufficient reasons. I am in excellent health. Hope to hear from you today again. It seems a long time between your letters. Love to the children and blessings for you from our merciful Heavenly Father. Write often, my sweet one. Your affectionate husband, Jed Hodgkins.